think you're on this.
Okay, we're on.
It's good probably you can speak just
Like
from
to
here instead of having to go up there.
Call
and
the, to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, March 20th. The time is 12:04. We have present a quorum, Mayor Weil, Ms. Fall, and myself. Is the sheet going, is there a sheet for people who
Sign-up
want to
sheet?
speak?
Okay.
Sign-up sheet? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it is.
Anybody who would like to speak, please stand and
Be sworn in.
you swear or affirm that what you say will be the truth.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
The case on the agenda is case 0805, or PUD at 11 and 13 West Stimson Avenue, Demetrius Prokos. Steve, would you like to explain this to us to begin with?
I believe at the last Planning Commission meeting, I presented you with a set of plans. They're now included in the file. Regarding a project Mr. Prokos proposed at the corner of Stimson and Palmer. Right now, it's a 130 by 130 single-level building. It has some age on it. Mr. Prokos proposes to demolish that building and reconstruct a building in accordance with the very preliminary plans that you've received already. I did a cursory review and sent you a letter about some zoning variances that might be necessary. I'd also asked a question, too, about the number of units. Hopefully that'll be answered today. That drives a couple of things, lot area per dwelling unit and application fees. Another possible variance related to this, if this whole project does go through, is that planned unit development needs a 2-acre area minimum. This is about 0.8 acres, I believe, in area. So again, those are just an additional thing that needs attention beyond what I'd mentioned in my letter.
Okay.
I've had discussion with some people too about, the procedure, but as I recommended to you at the last meeting, I think this is a project that best fits under Title 2109 Planned Unit Development. And in the meantime, have you thought of any other questions that you have that I might be able to answer?
The parking for planned unit development is, this is the off-street parking requirements, or does this count on-street parking too?
Does not count on-street parking.
Okay.
That could be a consideration. There is some available there, but that's not included in the count. I know some people have raised the question that because some on-street parking has been indicated on the plan, it's not possible to count that. And the answer is yes, you cannot count it.
Okay.
It is public parking.
Okay. Mayor, do you have, Mr. Prokos, would you like to come up to the microphone and
Sure.
make any presentation that you'd like and give us answers to any of Steve's questions?
Okay. My name is Dimitris Prokos, and I own Prokos Rentals, the company that gonna hope can build this project. Should I answer your questions first, or do you want me to?
Why don't you first just present to us what you'd like to do on that
Okay.
site?
Because this is my first chance to talk to you guys in an official basis. We had some meetings with different officials in the private. I would like to go on record that this is a project that I will use the word that the city has used, a vision that I had back in late 90s, and with co-architects, Laszlo Cohen-Panker was the first architect that designed anything for that location. And in fact, I have some drawings with me that, them drawings, they have a date of 2003. At that time, we were able to build something there, but we had a non-profit organization renting from us the building, and we didn't have the courage, let's say, or we make a decision not to ask them to leave so we can put something there. This idea, I've been working on it for a long, long time. And then finally, the New to You found what they thought a better location, and they went someplace else. And that building became vacant. I had many people that they wanted to rent it. The businesses that they are interested in the building, because of the proximity to the uptown and what is really the main customers for the uptown, which is usually the students, everybody that approached us were to do something that's similar to uptown. There will be restaurants, bars, coffee shop, and we got the information that at one time that Tim Hortons was looking in the area. We spent thousands of dollars to making a plan that will be appealing to Tim Horton to get Tim Horton there, and that is very recently. As a result, the plans was including what Mr. Laszlo Coinpunker had designed in early 2000, late 90s, and we presented to the Tim Hortons. Well, in our surprise, we found out that although we're B3, which from my understanding, B3 is the most unrestricted business in a zone in the city of Athens, we couldn't sell donuts out of the place. If somebody wanted to sell donuts, which being classified food or any other type of food, out of the place, we couldn't sell it. In fact, I think the law says something about you cannot serve drinks or food out of the place. Now that leaves the place to be available to somebody that doesn't serve food or drinks, and so going to have to be some kind of retailer or somebody that is looking for an office business to put an office there. Now the retailer is being taken care by Walmart. Our laws has been written, a lot of them, before Walmart came to Athens, Ohio. That was written before Athens, Ohio had less than the present, over 250,000 square feet of commercial property empty. You guys can look the uptown. You can see how many thousands of square feet of commercial space is vacant on the most prime location of Athens, uptown. Or if it is a question about which is the most prime business location in town, let's look at State Street. Ohio University controls the most of the major tenants there, commercial tenants, and they have their share of a big vacancy. You go to the next biggest private, to the next big commercial space, which is the Athens, the University Mall, whatever it's been called, and you can see that 2/3 of that mall, and I might be very conservative when I say 2/3, that mall is vacant. And so I have a property that will add to that, to another 250,000 square feet of commercial space. And I cannot rent it to anybody. I cannot rent it to somebody if we'll sell donuts out of the place. Okay? Then we had the opportunity to have a contract for something that I don't like, you don't like, but it is about one of the few things can go there, and that is the adult entertainment place. Nobody in this room wants this place to go there, including me. The rent from that place is going to be fantastic. The rent of that place is going to be a lot more than even after I build these apartments. If I build these apartments, I will be able to clear, because at that point I'm going to become the clerk for the bank. I have to borrow millions of dollars to do that, and until the bank's being paid off, very little going to stay behind. Okay? Where this place right now, it is a nice commercial property that if the laws were common sense, because I believe it's not common sense when you say you have B3, but you cannot sell a donut out of your B3 property. Okay? If the laws were in common sense, this property would be rented, and I wouldn't try to do something else with the property. Okay? Now, bakers are not choosers, and I have used that before. I have obligations to my employees. There are many families making their living from my businesses. I have obligations to my banks. I have obligation to my family. I don't want to go bankrupt just because the city, after I bought a B3 and I was allowed to do things, the city keep on changing the laws to a point that I cannot really put a residence there. So we are here today. Now, when the mayor took the office, which we support him, and because we like the change, we want to see change on the no-sense laws, like the one I keep on saying, B3, that you cannot sell donuts. Okay, and the mayor make a point. I was not in town at that time, but I read the newspaper. I think it was Athens News, and maybe it was a report from Nick that's been sitting, Mr. Nick Klaus there. The Mayor Scott was not what the city has as was not his vision or the city's vision to see an adult entertainment going there, neither what the university has. And I hope I'm not paraphrasing you wrong on that, but it is part of what's been in the newspaper. When I saw that, I got mad, and I said, well, that's what I wanted, that's why I have this vision, and that's my vision that I've been working with, the same vision the mayor talks, the same vision the university has. I've been working since early 2000s and late, I've been working on it for over 10 years, okay? So I took a picture that the architects, I had spent thousands of dollars for the architects to do. I don't know the correct word for it, is when you design a drawing, and then you go and take a picture of the actually location, and then you overimpose what is on the drawing on that picture. It looks like it's a picture of something real, but it's not. The street, the sidewalk is the same. Can I get it for a second?
Sure.
And I don't know where it should have started.
That's
I know somebody has seen that.
Yeah.
This piece of paper right there, forget the drawings, is over $1,500 just for that little piece of paper. And I already had it. I had it months before any of that started. And that is part of the drawings that Mr. Panicks, the company Panicks & Law, Mike Knoll, worked with. That was really from the original design that Mr. Koh had done almost 10 years ago. On the picture you can see they are actual sidewalk. You can see the street, it's the actual street, both streets, Palmer and Stimson. And also you can see even the stop sign, which is the original sign. I mean, them stickers on the back of the sign is what is there right now. Okay? Okay. But again, it has to become cost effective before you do any project. So I came to the mayor and says, Mayor, if you have a vision and the university has a vision, I always have this vision. Is that your vision? And at that point, it was obviously that was more the vision than anything else proposed at this point, like the dog club or anything else to go there. Well, that's basically the story. So without going into details and everything else has happened, and a lot of you are up to speed on everything else. And one thing I need to really, and I think it's important. Before I went to the mayor, I called one of the council members that I know very well, and I will not say names, just to and I said, it frustrates me that the city has a vision. And the vision is the same vision I had for many years. In fact, this picture, I'm sure to you, looks kind of familiar. You have seen it in many places in the city of what's the vision of the city. You guys have your own drawings. And that is a picture of part of that big picture. Maybe it's not the identical color of the building, but it matches. And I told this gentleman, says, well, he deserves credit, so I need to tell his name. It was Bill Bias.
And I say, Bill, I mean, I don't believe it. Everybody has a vision, but everybody has tied my hands. And not just mine, but every other business person in town. And we have to go through a whole bunch of hoops just to do what the city wants us to do. And Bill says, you know, Dimitris, don't give up. You know, if I was you, I already was frustrated, and I wasn't doing anything with that vision. And Bill says, you know, don't give up. Maybe you need to call some of the people that they're involved and outspoken about what's going on. And maybe that, you know, maybe after they realize what your vision is, or was for a long time, maybe we can go, you can go someplace. So he encouraged me, and that's as a result of Bill's encouragement, is when I make the call to the mayor, and then we were on the part that I already have told you. I forgot to tell you the whole part. That was how I got to even think that anybody will listen. Okay, and so I'm very thankful to you guys that you're listening today, no matter what the decision is going to be. Okay, now let's go to the merits of the project. The project on this picture was done again many years ago. The original idea had a tall roof. It wasn't really to put any commercial space on the bottom. And back then was designed when the original design was when we were one parking per apartment. And that will get us back to, somebody can correct me, but I think that was in the late 90s. It was about the same time that I built my apartments on Richland Avenue, the South Y, people call it, by the gas station. But again, we did have a tenant there that we didn't want to ask to leave. And we decided, we wanted to build apartments, instead of building there, let's find another place to build them. Now, I also want to bring another point, because it is important for this body to realize we have a lot of outrage of our citizens, and I'm not taking one side or the other, I have to state the facts the way I see it, because business people going to a hill, they cut it down. We have people from our town doing it on one side of the town. We have some other business people doing it on another side of our town. And they're going and cutting the trees down, they're leveling the hill, and they put apartments there, or whatever they want to develop it. Well, if we cannot develop the town, where are we going to go? This town going to grow. We cannot be like another politician has caught, or a city official, I don't know what, I don't want to name a name, but the person said, we need to start, the only way we can take care of the parking is by getting the university to go down to 16,000 students. Well, why don't we tell the university to leave? And then, you know, we go and find a place to live too. So that's not the mentality. The mentality is the town going to grow, and let's get with the idea that the town going to grow. And if we have a vision, let's help the people that they want that vision to make it happen. Okay. Now, when I did this drawing, we did the drawing that this picture is a result of. The commercial space wasn't quite as bad, but it was very obvious that the space going to get bad, because Walmart was was already here, or was getting to be here, getting ready to be here, to come here. The parking was enough to do it, but now it's not, because we did change the laws meantime, and the laws right now requiring one parking for each tenant, which is a big difference from one parking per apartment. Back then we had a lot more parking issues, because with some smart ordinance, we eliminate a lot of the parking, including the parking uptown. It is plenty spaces right now uptown to park, even if the police has closed half of this street because of the bob thread, and people had to park someplace else. Still, it's plenty places in town. The parking garage always has available spaces. You guys visit it all the time, and you see it. So the issue is not quite as bad as used to be back when we changed the law that we need one for each tenant. I believe that the law should say, depends where you live, how many parking you need to have per apartment or per tenant. If you're uptown and we do in most of our business with uptown tenants, customers, whatever you want to call it, many of the uptown kids that come into you, they are not having vehicles. By the city, we will require, like when we did the church, we turned it to apartments. When we did, we put 10 bedrooms on 40 East A Street, which is right as close as you can get to Core Street for what we have. We were required to have one parking spot per tenant. Well, we do have these parking spots, but we don't have enough, the tenants don't have enough cars to fill these parking spots, because that's the reason they're renting uptown, so they don't have to walk. The father and mother, parents, they want their kids to be close to uptown, and they pay the premium, so the kids want to be close to school. And the kids say they have the same goal. They want to be close to uptown, because they want to be close to the bars. Okay? But the fact is that everybody wants to be close to uptown, so they don't have to drive. So therefore, many of them don't bring a car. If they're going to be 5 people in the house and 1 or 2 driving, then the others don't have to bring the car, because they know their buddy going to give them a ride to Kroger's or whatever it is. Now, when you have a property like I do have on Richland Avenue, if you go there in the daytime, it's no cars. If you go there at night, it is a lot of cars. That tells you that all the people who are far away, like Richland Avenue, they drive their cars to go uptown because it's too far to walk. I know we have a bus system, but we know the bus is running empty, 2 or 3 people in it, if you, at least the one goes on Richland Avenue. So now really what we're doing with these laws, we're forcing people to be farther away, which for sure we're going to force the tenants to drive. And then in the daytime, all these cars that the tenants have, they're uptown someplace. So then people like me, although I have the property, I'm required by the city to have 10 parking spots for 10 bedrooms. These 10 bedrooms only using 1 or 2 of the parking spots uptown. And that's, you can see our records, and you can ask any landlord that has a property that rents uptown. And the remaining is being rented to people who live in farther away. Okay? So what I'm saying, it is unfair to say that 100% of our tenants have cars. That is really, it's not fair. It is ridiculous. It's as ridiculous as me coming here and telling you 0% of our tenants have cars. You don't want to believe me. But if I come here and tell you that 100% of my tenants have cars, you shouldn't believe me either. But you make me, or make all of us, to create a giant parking lot in the city of Athens. And that's what Stimson Avenue is going to be. With my place, no matter what my place happens or what doesn't going to happen in my place, we have a nice grocery store, which could have been something else, even apartments there, and now going to be knocked down to be a giant parking lot. Okay? Now, I'm sorry, but I don't meet the requirements for a giant parking lot on my place. I have come up with some other ideas, unofficially speaking to people, including zip cars. Zip cars, for the people who don't know, it is a car that is being parked in a public place, and anybody, as long as they have pre-qualified themselves with the company, they have some kind of electronic key. You go by the car, you on the windshield of the car, you move the card around, I guess, or that electronic key. The car unlocks itself. You go in, you put your credit card or that key in the car starts timing you, and you do whatever you're going to do. You bring the car back to the same spot, and the car prints your receipt, you walk away, and the car locks itself until the next customer gets there. Okay? A lot of universities are using these zip cars, or zip car concern, including MIT, and MIT has done studies on it. Ohio State University will be the closest that I can think. Harvard. There are many universities. I mean, the list of the universities are, I might even have it here, it is a very long list. My idea of a zip car was as a result by talking to people and telling me about the issues they have with the park in the city of Athens. My idea about zip car is not just about my place. My idea of zip car is to eliminate the giant parking lots for anybody. Because if it is a zip car sitting in the front of on the street someplace, if we have a dedicated place for 1 or 2 zip cars, any businessman or any person working in this office, maybe their wife or her husband will drop them off, because if they need to go someplace, they have the zip card, they can go someplace. Where now, everybody has to have their card because they might have to go someplace. Although really they can ride with their husband can pick them up or drop them off, or another co-employer or wife or whatever it is. Okay?
Excuse me for interrupting, but I like the idea of the zip car proposal, but is that going to be part of your proposal for the PUD?
No, I'm not proposing it right now.
Okay.
But I would like to have it as an idea that you guys can look at, or I don't know what is the right body to look this idea, because that zip card will eliminate a lot of the problem. The reason you have the regulations that you have to work with is because the pressure you're doing because of the parking issue.
Right.
And I'm just giving you a proven answer to the problem, which I wouldn't mind to put some zip cars on that location, but I'm not making it as I don't want it to be a condition of what I'm doing. I'll be glad though, and I'd like to go on record, that I wouldn't mind to put zip cars in many, I wouldn't mind to put as many zip cars as the city will require, as long as they become cost effective. And I can put them to the fairgrounds, so people can drop the car and then drive the zip car here. I can put them on Richland Avenue, on East A Street, on Uptown. And I have experience with rental cars. We've been in the rental car business from, I cannot name you years, but I think it's probably since '94. So we've been in so I'm as experienced with the car rental as anybody. And that might be a solution that you guys can require for me and other business people that want to do something uptown.
But that could be a whole other proposal, and we really ought to get back to your buildings. This picture only really shows 3-story buildings, but according to the plans, you're planning 4-story buildings?
Yes. No. We plan it, and I have the drawings here. Now, what happens, that's not... This is something that also, we have a problem. When you do a building, like the one in the picture, which really fits a lot more the neighborhood. But to be cost effective, you cannot put vacant, what I believe will be vacant commercial spaces. I don't want to add another 250,000 square feet to the other 250,000 square feet. So the building has to have enough paying tenants to pay for the vacancy we're going to have on the bottom, I believe. And so that building cannot make it, because that building here is only 2 floors. In order to stay under the 2 floors above the commercial, in order to stay under the 45-foot and the 3.5 requirement, the 3.5 stories requirement. So that building physically cannot make it if we have to put the stores. Now, I do understand a lot of people that haven't really realized the economics of a project, that it will be very hard to allow residential on Stimson Avenue. So we dropped this plan, and we're going to a plan that be more kind of like that, then result. This is a true picture from a true building. It's not what that's part of our drawing.
So this isn't really what you're proposing either?
No, I'm taking the story, the history. And the new proposal is going to be not necessarily the same colors, but basically the architecture style. Okay. And the one good thing about that, and the architects, Mr. Mike Knoll has done a very good job. He's breaking the building so it doesn't look one big long train or like a commercial seat there. Right. And he's breaking it in different places. What we're looking here, that's Stimson Avenue, okay? And Stimson Avenue has the commercial spaces, has a store that wraps around, and on this drawing we can see it even better. And then on Richland, in Palmer, we need to have a handicapped apartments. Now, if you're going to put, and we need to have the percentage, I think it's 4% or whatever, no, 2%. If we're to put 2 of our apartments on the second floor, because the requirements say that we need commercial here too, then we have to have elevators for 2 apartments. Now, that kills the project right there, okay? So we try to get everybody as happy as we can. And now, you are going to your question, you say you're proposing 4 stores. The way that the state calls it, it is, you can have 3 stores and a mezzanine. And I have the definition from the state, I will bring it to you in a second.
So these would be handicapped.
Well,
What's that saying?
handicapped on the second floor.
No, handicapped on the first floor. That's why
Only
they're on the first
with
floor.
only with a variance.
Right.
Yeah. And then, I don't know whether this is city right-of-way,
It is.
so,
That's what I'm saying.
but there's got to be parking, handicap parking for
Mhm.
this.
I think that that's a
Actually,
legitimate.
I have a letter from Mr. Like, no. Would want to register. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And I
One
think
extra.
on paragraph 4,
Height limitation.
I think from the point of view of fire safety, they'd be better on the first floor too.
Does Steve have a copy of this?
he knows this laws.
Oh,
He has it in his head.
Thank
He
you.
knows everything. These are collective brain.
Okay.
Would you like to ask Mr. Broka's questions?
I think personally, when a lot of this discussion went on during the election and such, and we talked about smart growth,
Right.
I think that this sort of project is a lot of what we envision, what I envision. When I've been in other places that have done more densely developed, is more multi-use is one of the key things. Pedestrian friendly is another one. I think that for me, my vision and my job is to balance what you need as a business owner and a landowner and those sort of things with the impacts that's going to occur to the neighbors and to the city. And
Right.
so I think that's one reason why I thought personally that this would be better under a PUD than a site review plan, because
Okay.
PUDs are more flexible.
Okay.
So I think that if we look at a lot of what you're saying and some of the issues, I agree with you, parking is a huge issue. And I actually talked to somebody who had done some research at the A-News in their archive 15 years ago.
Right.
And they said that parking was still a big issue. She said it was like going back to the future. So this has been with us for a long time. And it's a challenge trying to figure out the parking issue. I think that that's a huge issue
Right.
with this. So I don't want to have you feel that the city is here to, put huge stumbling blocks in front of you, but, one of our roles is to help mediate, the impacts and stuff.
All right.
And so, and I hope that we can look at this in a cooperative way, because personally I think I'd much rather see this sort of development than Bob's turning into a giant parking lot. I mean,
Right.
that's to me, personally, seeing that happen is such a waste of prime real estate. So,
Exactly.
So trying to look at how we can address some of these issues is what I really would like to see in this process with you. So, But parking is a huge bugaboo. You know, there's no kind of way around. We have to be able to deal with that at some
Right.
point. So,
So what do you think of the overall density?
well, how many, I mean, what are you looking at?
Looking at 122
If we,
people.
again, I think a lot of the answer is going to be on the paragraph 5, which is the last paragraph.
Okay.
Give us, there might give us all the numbers, and he says number of tenants and units.
Okay, so it's 30 units.
30 units, exactly.
What's the mix going to be?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what the mix will be? I mean, are you going?
You know, I don't know the exact number of what apartments, but they're going to be 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom units.
Right.
Of course, to get 122 tenants in 30 units, that most of them going to be the bigger ones, the 4 and 5.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So, and we have, I think, 67 parking spots. I think
you
that's what,
have
yeah, on number
67
3.
here.
67 in our location. And I need to say something else that's, we need to really figure that out with Mr. Pearson. I need to make a little drawing.
Does this 67 parking units, is that just on the property and not including the ones that are in the front and on the street?
These 67 here, they're just inside our perimeter.
Okay, so,
Okay.
okay.
In fact, if you see
Yeah.
the floor plan drawing you have there, actually shows some buildings elevated,
Right.
so we can put parking underneath it. We saw a part elevated for the cars to even come in from the street, to be like a bridge kind, like they're coming in. So we try to I mean, I don't know how we put in parking even on the front building, but behind it and
Right.
then underneath it. And of course, we have to stay with our tree requirement and the grassy area and all that. One thing I want to point out, and sorry for the drawing here. Steve, do you mind come to, so you see what I'm talking about? It's been a little question about, which we found the pen, so it's not a question anymore. This is Stimson Avenue, and this is Palmer. Okay? Yeah, we are basically looking at, well, I guess.
Well, this is right here.
Okay. Right. This parking spot here, well, that's a good drawing right here. On this parking spot here, right over here is a hydrant. Right next to the hydrant is the pen. That pen, it is about 2 feet. My parking, you know, this parking that we say the city parking, is not the city parking. 2 feet of that parking, if I put a line here, let's say, okay, that is on my property. Okay? Now, the city has been using that for as many years I've been in Athens, since '74. Okay?
But the city has a right-of-way
No,
along it.
Saying that is the right of way.
that is the right way. This is my property. I pay taxes to this point here. Okay? And the city's been parking cars, or not the city, I mean, you know, and I'm glad, our customers for our businesses, parking cars there, and maybe for the bank, and maybe for whatever it is. But this is a public parking. What really, when you park there, your front 2 tires are on my property. Now, my question is, to you, to this body, is can you please give me credit for my percentage of this parking? If 20% of a car is being parked there, I mean, of 20% of any car is being parked there belongs to me, the parking on my parking spot, why should I lose 100% of these parking spots? And I've been doing it for many years. I donate that to the city.
Well, that
And
means
the
you've been using 80% of ours too for your parking.
No, no, I haven't, because you never have given me credit that's my parking.
Ah.
You always say that is the public parking, okay? So if we put a parking meter there, I would like to have 20% of the revenues, right?
There's no parking meters.
It's not. And I'm not expecting one to be, or I don't know if it's going to be. But I'm saying, in all reality, if you was to rent this parking spot, like we rent in the rest of town with parking meters, you shouldn't be, I can put a fence there, say, this is mine, you cannot park there, right? I haven't done it, and I don't want to do it. But I'm saying, in all reality, though, that's the truth. Okay, and I'm not saying you have to do it. That's why I'm here. Okay, I'm asking just something to consider. Okay, if I'm already, you cannot say I don't have anything on the street when really every parking spot on the street will not be there with my without my donation.
I think part of the dialogue right now is that the Disabilities Commission would like to see a sidewalk there. So eventually the sidewalk, the perpendicular parking may disappear along the way.
We already
A
have that.
A sidewalk, well, when you say you already have one, yeah, there's something of a sidewalk there.
No, we have it.
Go ahead.
We have the parking, because here what happens. Right now, you have the parking there, then the sidewalk, it is on our property, okay, not on the right of way, is the sidewalk, okay? And now that sidewalk can be nicer, okay, or
I think that's
worse,
what their problem
but,
is.
okay, but it is not only the 20% of the car is there, but also the sidewalk, it is on my property right now, okay? So I would like to trade a little bit here, say, well, can you please give me credit for what I'm providing? Because if you're going to put the sidewalk, you're going to put the sidewalk here, and then you're going to kick 13 or 15 cars out on the street.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm saying let's, I'm allowing, but and going with my plan, you have everything taken care, and you have these parking spots there. Without my plan, these parking spots don't going to be there. But at the same time, I cannot get credit for them. But the only reason these parking spots are there is because, because we allowed it to be there.
I think we need to see a map that shows the city easement
Yes.
and where the sidewalk would go and so on,
Right.
before
Now-
we make any decisions about that. But
Now,
that's,
on this plan, we're talking about this plan right now too. The sidewalk, of course, going to meet any requirements that, Mr. Pearson has in his office for the handicapped people. Remember, we do keep in mind the handicapped people. That's why we want to put handicapped apartments too. And they're going to come in, they're going to have a nice sidewalk. Actually, in this area, I don't think there's really too much of an issue on the sidewalk, right? It's right in this corner, the issue they have, right? The handicap.
Yeah, the ramp will have to be installed.
Right over here. And then they're going to be able to go behind the parking, which again, part of it is ours. They're going to be on our property. They're going to come out, and then finally going to be on this, half on the street and half on whatever is going on. I mean, down the street, I cannot speak for, I can only speak for what is my plan. Well, yeah, if you're talking about parking lot now,
if you put
you're going to be run over by some cars there.
If you put handicap apartments here, will they be accessible from the parking that's under the,
Yes.
so that if you're in this apartment, I mean, if
You're
you're
gonna have
using
your
this
own parking.
apartment, you would have your own parking and be able to come in on
Dedicated
this
to the
side.
handicap. And you can see the door here. This only shows you first floor, and that's why this building here, it is on dotted lines, and you see the stills there because you can see the parking. That is really more to show the parking and the footprint of the building. Over here, all them are parking spots with a garage doors,
Yeah, okay.
and the same thing here. So all the
So this is enclosed parking.
closed parking here, open parking every other place. Okay. So these people, when they come in, the handicapped people, they'll be able to have they will have their access to their apartment from there. And I think, nobody gonna go and put an elevator that is probably over $100,000, and then you have the maintenance, which I think runs about $5,000 a year with insurance and all that,
Well, I think
for 2 apartments.
I think there's another consideration about that too, and that is, if you need a handicapped accessible apartment, you're not going to want to depend on an elevator in case of fire. You'd be much better on the first floor.
Right.
And it seems to me that's a valid reason for asking for a variance for those.
Right.
two
And
apartments.
the other thing, really, we don't ask variance restrictions, which we know, although to me, business makes more sense that I don't think I'll be able to rent the Stimson Avenue storefront. But what we're doing, we want a variance to maximize our ability to rent them. It is a restaurant across the street. It's not fair to say that we're going to spend about $5 million here and we shouldn't have the same rights that the restaurant has across the
Right.
street.
Right. I think part of the issue is some of the when you look at codes and stuff, they're living documents. And, there's always issues. One of the challenges with the comprehensive plan was that there's been identification of problems with the code.
Right.
So I think that, that's why the PUD process allows for variance and stuff,
Right.
to allow for this. However, you may not be able to rent retail right now. However, in 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, it may be very different when the bypass has changed and OU is larger and the rest of down, that there's more pedestrian-friendly development in Athens. There may be people who really want retail. So, I mean, that's one reason, to have, one reason, one of the driving forces with smart growth is to have it so that you have, things that are available, banking and, and Stimson Avenue can evolve into something that's very user-friendly for the citizens, not only, here, the residents here, but also the residents in the east side.
Right.
To be able to go, I mean, that's why Bob's was so wonderful, Bob's Market, because you could go and you could live without a car.
Right.
Now with the demise of Bob, that's one thing. If you go over into the east side neighborhood, and you ask, what do you want, what's the best thing that would make your life wonderful, is a grocery store. A nice size,
Right.
decent size.
But you have to keep in mind that the grocery store went out of business.
But it did not go out of business because a lack of business. It went out of business because there was some problems.
Well,
with
we can say that
investments
for any
and stuff.
business, though. We can say that for any business.
Yeah, well, Bob, but the thing is that, there is neighborhood needs.
The location was a good
Well,
one for a
I'll tell you
grocery
though,
store.
on this location, that specific location, there were 2 video stores. One of them was mine, and both of them went out. Was an auto parts store that went out. Was a bowling alley. I mean, a pool hall that went out. Was a TV store. Kind of a music center. One of the.
Oh, well, that was a long time.
Right, they went out. and
But they
moved
just
to the
moved,
location,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And but it was they were cutting hair at one time here too. Was a dealership that we found a better location to put, and now because I have an empty space, I'm trying to put another dealership there, which really that's not an issue. Obviously,
Right.
For anything I'm doing, it's mine. I can, and the only reason I'm doing it, I have an empty space, and it's very bad when the owner has to be forced to open up his own business there, just so he doesn't have an empty space and people don't use the graffiti like Bob's is right now. And my place was right before the Obama campaign there. They asked us to
Cover it,
paint
yes,
over
yeah. The graffiti.
and if you have an empty building, it's going to be worse. But there weren't many businesses here. Even New to You found a better location. At least they think so, right? So when you have Walmart in an area, retail, the face of retail is being rewritten. The book for retail in that area is being rewritten. And in this case, what makes it worse, that we cannot sell food or drinks out there. Or sell.
I think that's something that in one of the previous meetings, we brought up that B3 section of the B3 code has to be changed. I think it was a mistake when that was put in there.
Of course.
When
So
that
that's
so
one
that's a-
issue, that's an issue that has to be looked at, or is being looked at this.
The problem though is, but you have to look, I mean, you say that, and I appreciate you finally changed it, because you're new mayor, and you guys are new on this body, and you're doing something, and we appreciate it. But I tell you what, go tell that to my bank. Okay, I mean, my bank wants $13,000 a month for this building. And I'm going to tell them, well, the city is in the process of changing the law, but meantime, I told 12, 15 tenants that I cannot rent it to you, because the city is,
Right.
And guys, it comes down to another thing that I have a personal reason. The reason that me and I think other people voted for a change was we want our freedom. Okay, we're fighting a war to say that we want democracy on their country. Okay, now I have a problem when somebody tells me, I will allow you to do what you want to do. On a B3, you can sell donuts if I give you permission and I'm your government. Okay, that's not fair. Okay, if we're free people and we have the most unrestricted business place, and I want to put a coffee shop on the most unrestricted in a progressive city like Athens, I think it is ridiculous. I have to say to my tenant, I'll rent it to you, but I don't know if I can rent it to you, because first I have to ask my government for permission.
Right.
And you know what you want to tell me?
Yes,
Where
but
do you live, in Russia?
well, the point of that is, part of that is identifying within the code that there has been some things that need to be addressed.
Right.
B3 does allow certain things, but there's the issue of being within 200 feet of residential.
But
That's-
between me and the residential is another restaurant that
That's right,
sells alcohol.
and that's true, and that's a grandfathered situation.
right.
So, and we have identified several things that have come up to our, kind of been shown to us that some of the things within the code need to be looked at, and that's a process that needs to go through. The comprehensive plan identified things that need to be looked at
Right.
and stuff. So, we understand your difficulty with the B3, with the restriction on restaurants.
Right.
I think that's just, it's an anomaly within the code at this point
Right.
because of changes that were made several years ago.
Right.
However, there are legitimate reasons for having certain restrictions on things,
Right.
within.
Of course, we need the laws. I mean,
Right. So, that's why we're here, is to try to balance public, the public benefits and public impacts with private benefits and private impacts.
Right.
So that's
But it's
why.
too much when everybody makes laws and then they have to throw it at you, so you guys give the permission. There's supposed to be some freedoms out there too.
Well, one of our functions is to get plans and suggestions and requests from people who want to develop and recommend to city council things that need to be changed.
Right.
So it's not a swift process, and it's not that anybody can do anything they want to, because we're trying to have the city grow in an orderly way and develop in an orderly way. One of the last things we want is a dead center of the city.
Right.
So Stimson Avenue is very important. I've got a pickier question. Well, not picky exactly.
No, but please.
In the apartments, are you going to have washers and dryers?
Yes, most of our new apartments, including, let me actually answer this way. The market drives that.
Well, because what I was going to say is, that's a perfect place for a laundromat.
Actually, I don't know, and then Mr. Pearson has to tell us, if that was, remember there are two laundromats on that street too. One right immediately next to the place.
Okay.
That'll be the
Oh,
passenger laundry.
right, yeah.
And across the place is the good laundry, okay, for one thing. So public laundry mat will not make sense to be there. Now, for the apartments, if there was a laundry mat that was being used just for the apartments, that would not be called business then, right? It was the laundry area for the apartments.
Would that be considered commercial?
Could you put that on the first floor?
Would that be considered a commercial use for the first floor?
It was only used for this business. For this
That's a good
residence.
question. I think it would depend on accessibility. If you don't have doors that cordon it off from the outside, anybody could walk in and do their laundry. There's a lot of places around, where they're private laundries, but they have a coin slot, and there's really no control of who might go there and use the facility.
So it can count
It may
as
be
a...
it may be used mainly by the residents of a property and be their laundry facility, but
So it
unless you
could count as a business use of that property?
well, that's a good question. If you charge even your own tenants to do their laundry, is that business or is that part of the facility?
And then if you treat it as a business, then who's going to run that business? Who's going to be there to supervise it, to clean it, to wash it, to clean it? Or, it has to be a tenant again, renting it to make it a business unless,
In your dealings right now with people who have said about your building as it stands now,
Right.
Would any of those types of businesses want to go into something like this?
Okay. Here, this plan here was basically taken from when we were working with this picture with
Right.
Mr. Claus and Tim Horton, something to request Tim Horton. What we have here, we have a drive-through that the cars can stack behind, so they don't want to be any problem on the street. They're coming out to Palmer, which is very low traffic street. In fact, the existing cars, although we have these cars parked backwards, most of the people pulling in and then they're pulling out on the street. So it's not really that
Yeah.
busy of a street. And we're doing that so we have an option, maybe a bank to go there by having a drive-through window, okay? Or a drive-through restaurant. And we asking for, for every possibility, of course. So now here, being small enough, if it's vacant, it will not look bad, because if it is vacant, if you have one rented and maybe one here rented and the other two vacant, it will not look like a big, massive vacant space. Now, being small enough, and I will take any rent over no rent, okay? It might be an office for somebody to be there. I really don't know what they, but they're going to be small enough spaces that's why we cut it down so much. So, and we're using, of course, the parking in the back to make it more affordable and have something that's not enough around town, small spaces to rent for a professional, a little office
Or a gallery.
Right. I mean, you're right. You never know. Maybe one of the students is going to want to do something here among so many tenants.
Non-profit space.
Yeah.
Non-profit space is
Well,
hard.
it's
Is
Still
hard.
very expensive.
It's hard to come by.
It's non-profit space right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, for like
12,000 square feet, that's not profit right now. And what we will do, we try to throw the traffic on Palmer, because Palmer is the easiest place to go, Of course, going to be a place to come in and out. This building here going to be very high, and I think shows it on this one, shows because we don't want a U-Haul, it's taller than the regular floor. We just don't want a U-Haul to come through and take part of the building thing.
And is there apartments up here?
Yes, there are going to be apartments. Yeah, that is apartments here.
And what sort
Am
of,
I looking the right place?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Simpson.
Yeah, that's the entrance, and they go behind the building. This is this opening there. And then we have another opening in Palmer, and another on the end of over here. It's gonna be.
Now, there's something over this too,
Yes,
up above.
That's
is
this.
this part.
Yeah.
This part,
Okay.
over there apartment.
Right.
funky apartments? Now, what sort of outside spaces do these apartments have? Balconies?
Well, yes, we do have balconies, as you can see. There are going to be some areas on the roof. They don't going to be a green roof, but there's going to be some vegetation up there. But it doesn't be that will increase the visual effect of it. And the roof going to be. Remember, per Mr. Knowles, the last floor, in order to be called Masonic, but it's a state can only be a third or less of the footprint of the building. So basically, it is a floor on the roof. We have this on the last roof. We can only put 1/3 of it. We can.
So this doesn't extend all the way back
No.
for the whole footprint
No. So
of the
this
building?
here, I mean, this part, and this part, I guess, the ones that are sticking up like that, they are only a total square foot equal to 1/3 of the remaining of the building.
Oh, okay.
In order to be under, qualify as a masonry.
So
which
you're
is the half
talking
of
about
the story.
an angle like the small photo, or are you talking about a flat?
Not
just
going to be a
1/3?
flat, but that's going to go, you see, even in the angle here, basically, you can only use part of it.
Yes.
Okay, and the way we're going to do it, we're going to go back and then stop.
Okay, so it's
You know,
flat, but
will
to
be
be
flat.
third.
And then
Most likely.
behind it would be,
Just an open roof like you see in the big buildings, like if you're on
okay,
the roof of the hospital, going to
Okay.
be.
it's not like balcony?
No,
or-
will not be.
okay.
We consider to open up this, no, it will be a small balcony area, but it
Behind
will
it,
not be
okay.
behind it, but it will be very limited, will not be open the whole roof.
That's good.
Okay, yes, exactly, because we're talking about parties and, we're not like
How are you going to keep people from using the rest of the roof?
fence.
Very high
You're
fence.
gonna have to do it. Actually gonna be a little wall, and then gonna be a fence, Now, I mean, you cannot keep people from using it. You try to keep people from using it. I mean, the wire cutters can fix that very quickly, and before the landlord knows, that the party happens. We like to.
But the intention is that this area is going to be actually accessible, and somebody can walk on that, is that what I'm hearing?
No.
All this is, okay.
The back of these people here, these people from, on this floor, they're going to be able to have a little window or a sliding door. They can go out and they're going to have an area, I cannot tell you right now, but be
So
8
it's
feet
like,
the same.
it's like a small patio for
Exactly.
these apartments?
Exactly.
With-
That they can lay out or,
With greenery?
With,
with your
yeah,
thing.
right. Now, again, it doesn't want to be a green roof.
Right.
Of, the way we under the definition, but going to have enough there to have it pleasant for the tenants when they're looking out. Because when these people looking out, they're going to see a massive roof, which is really going to be a rubber roof with gravel on it, big gravel.
Perfectly. Mini golf.
Yeah,
Sand
many
pipe is
plastics.
in there.
Yes,
More
that's
plastics
true,
than you
the
think.
piping's lower, the filters are doing.
Uh,
Killdeer is the nest on
We
it.
just don't want to go anything there that
Yeah.
we don't want to allow the adult entertainment place.
Okay, and you see this as a restaurant so,
I hope as a restaurant, because remember we have 300 kids behind us just on the new apartments we built. Then we're talking 100 here, 100 and some. And there, within a half a mile, you have probably 2,000 more
right.
students there.
Well, a restaurant versus a bar.
Anymore is the modern thing is like the sports bar would be like, like the, what's that?
Don't say bronies. That's
Okay.
not very popular with the neighborhoods.
But
BW3.
the sports bar is what you see, even a pizza place now, you see that. You sit down and you drink a beer.
BW3 type,
Yeah, you see, that's basically what happens.
Tuesdays.
Damon's was like that.
Didn't work, yeah, it didn't work with Damon's.
Well,
What happened to
many
them?
reasons. Too much
Good
restaurant.
location.
Too much restaurant. It's a good location, but you have how many? All these restaurants, they wasn't there 10 years ago, and the population didn't went up that much in 10 years.
Well, I would also encourage to look at things. What happens, from what I've gotten from neighbors in the east side, the near east side, is that everything is being, converted to student use. All these apartments, and then all the, there are some nice places. You get either very nice places to eat, like Stevens, which families can't use,
Right.
or there's, the bronies, which you don't want to use because it's just too wild and crazy.
Right. They have a
And-
great chicken wings, though. Tell you.
And so, it's, residents are frustrated in a lot of that.
Right.
And so I think that's an untapped,
Tim Hortons would
Let
be
me tell you,
wonderful.
well, Tim Hortons, we lost that thing, an opportunity there, and that's why I'm angry
Yeah,
about
they
it.
don't like
This
going
situation.
into neighborhoods. A lot of those places do not like having to deal with.
Let me tell you though,
They want strips. They want simple, easy
let me
strips.
tell you though, many businesses have realized the value of Stimson Avenue. Obviously, I realized the value of Stimson Avenue 20 years ago, and that's why I invest with that. But, and that's why it's important we don't choke it to a point that doesn't want to happen with what we wanted to happen, we had interest for many people, anything from bars to pizza places. It is a company, I cannot name it, he's still a possibility. He has a franchise of Wendy's, that gentleman, and now he's opening up his own franchises of his own different name, and he has a big interest in this place. Nothing, we haven't signed no leases or anything, but it is interest on their, but again, remember, think the economics of Athens. The students are here 8 months a year,
Right.
okay? And if you're don't gonna go and put a business next to a student area, that will be for the townspeople, because the towns will not support it, like it's been happening on the uptown. It's sad, but that's the reality. Town people would rather go to East A Street.
Well,
Yeah.
but you look at places like Casa and places that are not strictly just,
But
salons.
have you been in
those,
Casa lately? How many people were there when you've been there?
it's always full.
Oh, okay.
I think that there is opportunity
Right.
to make stuff that's not strictly for students if one realizes that the town residents are here 12 months a year.
Well, but me as a landlord, I can only provide the space, and what's gonna go if a tenant comes. I'll make it. Obviously, I'm doing a drive-through, and we, I just finished making a point that the students from that area don't really drive as much. Where town people will, people from uptown, their way out of town, they stop in Stimson, pick up their whatever will be there, Chinese,
But this is within walking distance of Morris Avenue and that
And Near East
part of
Side.
town, Near East Side.
You don't see that much walk, I mean... I
There
still
isn't
say you
anything
don't
to
see that
walk
much-
to.
Okay, right, that's right, there's nothing to do.
Yeah, I think that you see a huge number of people walking, and they would walk more if there were places.
Right.
You know, I think that it's an untapped market, and that's what I have heard from the Near East neighborhood. who-
Your idea is good, but if you really want that to happen, make it appealing to the people who have this kind of businesses to come there. Okay, and that is something we all need to work on that. You know, I mean, I can only provide the space. Maybe give a tax break to a business that wants to come uptown. I mean, close to uptown. That is the type of a business you want it to be.
There's a lot
You
of-
know,
yeah.
Because I'm just telling you, I have the space there now,
Right.
and the only interest I have it is how many students. It's always the student. I mean,
Right.
it is the beginning of the student neighborhood. In fact, it's going to become even more student if the vision of the city comes through, because the vision is that
Yeah,
everything behind there
this is
students.
the high-density area. that-
For students,
yeah.
right. And unfortunately, I mean, that's what they're looking, you know. And, you know, it's very hard to get a retailer, because a retailer cannot compete. I mean, you know, we talked about a long time ago, Mr. Cunningham and Mrs. Cunningham, they had Cunningham Music Center and TV there. I mean, who's going to go and open up anything like that when you have Walmart down the street? I mean, you know, I mean, so cannot be that type of a business.
Right.
Has to be something, and we need to invite them to come in and give them some kind of breaks. And you can go through, you know, you can say to landlords, you know, like, bring this type of a business and we reduce your taxes. But you have to pass it on the rent. So then you can say, I can still pay my payment, and I can, you know, or I don't know, I'm just giving an idea. I'm not really, like, my idea with a zip card was really my zip card is not a selfish idea for this development. In fact, when I
No,
was
I
talking
think
to many people,
it's a great idea
It's a
for
global.
the town in general.
let me
yeah.
tell you what I thought, that now that we are that far. I need that much, I'm not sure, that's my
that's yours.
Okay. I need, let's say, that much more parking, okay? Now, what happens if that much parking lot really goes to a place that they need it even more? And they call it a zip card, because according to MIT studies, one zip card counts for 20 parking spots. Let's say we don't want to believe that, let's call it 10 parking spots. Now, what the smart thing to be, to make, anybody wants to do something like that, says, okay, you can do that, but you need to put one zip card, and I want the zip card on fairgrounds, because I need it there more than I need it here.
Right.
Because you do have one parking spot for 1 point something parking spot per apartment here. And should you're that close uptown, maybe you don't need as much, you know.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that you and the Chamber of Commerce and the city should work together to make it possible to try it out in Athens,
Right.
because I've seen
Is it-
bicycles done that way,
Right,
and they're doing them in Paris, and it's a tremendous success.
right.
Well, they do it, there's places in Maine that do. I mean, it can work in a lot of different places.
Mayor can correct me, but it wasn't correct that a university had done, Ohio University had done a study, and it was that the students using their vehicle, an average student use the vehicle 0.8
Weekends per month, yeah.
0.8 weekends per month. So if the weekend, let's say 1 weekend per month, that means an average student uses the vehicle 3 days. If you want to call Friday a weekend too, okay, the whole day Friday. So an average student uses the vehicle 3 days a month. Now that student will be the average student. That student will probably not have a car here if he can get a zip card to
Right.
do what he needs to do. Because you can take it and go home to Cleveland. You know what I mean? You can leave it in the airport in Columbus while you're flying for your spring break. Do whatever you want to do, like a rental car, you know. Zip car is something that you can rent per hour, and actually the fuel is included on your rent. But you're required to fill it up when you see that goes down to a quarter of the tank. And with the company's credit card. Okay, that is locked in the zip card. So it is kind of pretty much ready to go vehicle. Yeah, but if you don't want that zip card to be taken by somebody, you park it some other place. I mean, if you was to
Not
use it
in a
in 5
zip,
minutes.
not in a zip parking
Right,
place. yeah.
and the car electronically knows that it's not within its perimeter, and doesn't let somebody else to go on and take it. Then the zip cars, also they're connected, the technology is with them. Of course, there are very many variances. That is, each car is connected via cell phone to the main office. So when the customer finishes, the customer has a receipt from the car, and the main office gets the report. And the customer once a month, goes to their credit card or send a bill to their business or to the city hall or whoever is responsible for have agreed to pay for it.
Well, I think that these sort of ideas have been knocking around kind of informally about the parking issue. I mean,
Right.
there's been, the hang tag idea and some other issues that need the parking challenge, the parking issue, and the challenge of trying to look at the whole issue holistically,
Right.
and-
One thing about the parking, again, remember, to me, I see that as a personal, I don't know, let's say call it fight, about the things that are wrong, okay? The thing about the parking, what is wrong, I can see what people thinking, they try to fix one thing, but by trying to fix sometimes one, will make a bigger mess on another side. If we make everybody to have parking lots, they're not gonna come to Athens, uptown, and buy $1 million worth of buildings, to knock it down and make a parking lot, okay? They're gonna leave their other building alone, so stays under the grandfather, okay? So that creates one problem. Now what the person gonna do, and I've done it, I'm gonna go to Stimson Regional Avenue, I'm gonna take part of the hill that was there, but you don't see it because the apartments are there, but we had to push the hill back too, or chop off part of the hill, and put our apartments there. Now the problem with that is, every of my tenant there, because they're far away, and I cannot, even then I cannot say 100%, but a lot of people have cars. Now these people, these cars, in the daytime, they're gonna go to school, or they're gonna go to work. They're bringing the cars uptown. So we're creating more of a problem by pushing the parking issue. Now if we say, if you're uptown, you only require, 30% of what you would require if you're 5 miles from uptown, okay, in parking, then we're gonna get more people uptown, so they don't wanna have to drive from 2 miles in,
Right.
and they don't wanna have to have cars.
Well, I don't think there's any question about the various ramifications of the parking problem. And I think we really can't, it's going to take a change in the law to change it. But we really can't deal with it now. But what we need to do is deal with your proposal.
I
As it's
one more thing. I really like
one
it.
short thing.
Well, something. We need to be fair on the parking, because if we really want to fix the parking area, if you want to fix the parking problem, okay, we need to be fair. And to be fair is, you have to go, like we zone in the city, we should say, this area here, because it's the proximity to uptown and to the university, we did a study, and 1 every 5 students have a car. Then the requirements, if you build here, is 1 every 5. Now let's go farther away. If, and we go to the area that say, it doesn't want to be one that says 100%. That's unfair. And we need to go to the area that says, okay, 8 out of 10 students have a car. So now every 10 students you have, 80%, you need 80% parking. Okay, that's going to fix a lot of the problems.
That's a good
and will
idea.
eliminate the big ugliness of a giant parking lot in the city of Athens.
That's a good idea.
Sorry.
Now, Steve, we're considering this case this is just a preliminary conference, right? This is
Right.
not
The
approval.
code calls this a pre-application meeting.
Yeah, okay.
It sets an opportunity for the commission to early and informally make the applicant aware of different city codes that may apply to the project. For example, if there is an application for a preliminary approval, an example of that would be that I would look at this in terms of the special flood hazard area, as one example. So there'll be a lot of additional things, a lot of additional staff input that will come from that. So what this meeting is intended to do is make the developer aware of, say, for example, too, what are the water and sewer tap fees? They're fairly expensive. Each department will have some information that they will add to a review of the plans. So that's just 2 examples right there.
Now, that area of Palmer Street is not really part of the area that where we asked about Elliott Street and the sewer grades and so on, right?
No.
Title 41.
When we were talking
Right,
about
but as
the-
you, There'll be opportunity to do that exact same thing with Water and Sewer Department. For
Okay.
example, on the far side of Roller Bowl, which is just down the street, that's where the huge storm tunnel's at. So part of the, I guess, the reflection of Water and Sewer Department is this project won't physically impact the big storm tunnel, but then you'd also want some input on what kind of capability that do we have in the area, because more than likely catch basins in the street and all of the impervious surfaces being created will drain to that tunnel. So what are the facilities from the site to the tunnel?
I would like to ask the same question that we asked about the Elliott Street area.
Right.
Partly because I've talked to Debbie Phillips about putting together a file with information about areas in the city where infrastructure needs improvement, and so that when we get a development proposal for that area, we know what goes along with it. So would you ask for that?
For example, as you mentioned, site plan review is very specific about that because it has a section that talks about what's the existing city infrastructure. In other words, city, what do you have to provide the developer? The flip side then is developer, what impact are you going to have on our existing system? And it is a good way to track areas that need improvement or that have a lot of additional capacity. And it could help if you were doing something getting toward creating impact fees also, because it's helping you identify things that need to be corrected. And once you have an inventory of things that are deficient, anyone impacting that has to help bring it up at least to a minimum standard. So it's a very, overall, very comprehensive, wide-ranging program to inventory. But like you say, this is be a first start toward that.
One of the good things about this proposal is, in my mind, that it's already impervious surface, so it's not going to make that much impact on storm sewers.
It could improve it, actually, if they used, most modern technology to use as in, new technology for the parking lots, too. I think my chief concern with this whole is the density of it. The density and parking issues, I think, are going to be one of the biggest challenges to the whole thing. Looking at the number of bedrooms and just the parking, it's very densely, it's a very high density proposal. Higher than what's behind. I mean, I looked at some of the densities in other cities, and it's getting up to the density of San Francisco and some of those other large city densities. So, I think that's a challenge of making economics and impacts balance. And
Right.
so I think that we're going to have to look at that.
How does the density compare with the landmark apartments? Did you
But
look
if you
at
look,
that?
no, but if you look at the fact that they have all of Bob's now
As parking,
as
yeah.
parking.
Yeah, so
But
they
it's
spread it
still-
out between two.
They spread it out. I mean, it's a larger site, so, and this is just a very, it's a high
But it's
density.
more people, yes.
So, it will affect the neighbors behind it who are students, but they have rights to, pleasant surroundings. And it will affect some of the neighborhood across Stimson also. I mean, so, that needs to be, that's a challenge, I think, with this.
Okay, part of my concerns here, looking at the list of code variances, deficiencies that Steve put together for the March 10th letter. You look at residential proposed for ground floor in Palmer. That to me is not a big deal, although it is, again, it's a zoning issue there, which of course applies to number 2, the eating and drinking establishments. That is a problem with B1 we have to deal with. B3s we have to deal with. Parking, again, regardless of zip cars, payments in lieu of parking spaces, these are things I want to look at in time, but I don't know if I want to look at it in this section. Number 4, which is the 4-story height, that's a big problem to me, because I'm looking at this as a east-west corridor, and therefore the Stimson's never going to see a live day for about 6 months with a 4-story. Maybe less than 6 months, but a good length of time is all going to be in shade there. I'm trying to visualize. I look at the Hockey Valley Bank, and that's not terribly tall, and that doesn't really get in the way that much. But then I start looking at the interior structure of this, where you have apartments on top here. And I'm assuming these are going to be at least 2 or 3, and this one here was the distance between that and the back frontage on Stimson. And this one, you know, this will see light of day once in a while, I'm sure, but it's not going to be really how I visualize something light and airy or something, or anything that would really, you know, come out with what I want to say as a project. Demetrius, you have something to say?
Yes, just to specify something, it looks like, at least from the front, going to be 4 stories, but we'll be under the 45 feet maximum height. Okay, that's what I want to say. So, I mean, it can be 2 stories and be 45 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think what he's discussing is the visual impact and the bulk of it.
Right.
I agree that the elevation does show that it's broken up, which I think is, you know, a good architectural way of dealing with some of the bulk. But, you know, we have no idea how the bulk looks with the houses behind it.
Right.
The ones that you have on stilts, how that's going to affect, and also how it's going to affect. I have concern about the flow of parking around it too, because of just some of the issues with pedestrian and parking with the underpass and things. But
And the retail
and-
on the corner. I mean, you're going to have a drive-through, which is, you know, as well as a parking area. So you have residential parking, you have driving through all the time, or
Right.
depending on the hours of whatever business goes in there. If you look behind, I think it's Fern Alley in terms of buildings on stilts at this point, just go in there and get a feel for, you know, just behind Court Street there. I mean, this is what you're
Right.
going to end up with in one sense. And there's not a lot of light in there, and there's not a lot
Right.
of, it's not where, I don't know. Again, I really what I have to do is I have to review what's in the comprehensive plan for Stimson Avenue
Right.
and look at that again. Because I thought that at that time they were talking about more of a 2-story view in general, stretching out. And when I say 2-story, I mean in terms of height. And whether they were talking about the far end of Stimson or the close end of Stimson, but the general appearance of it was nothing, you know, not monolithic. And again, breaking up the architecture is great, but
Yep.
the overall bulk of it.
The bulk.
Demetrius, oh, well, she's in charge. Talk to Peg.
You
One
can
more
answer
thing.
him, and then I have a question.
Behind, we do have a building, the new buildings. Remember, they are already on the maximum height. So if our building doesn't going to be, close to their height, you're still going to be able to see their roof line. Okay, because I mean, if you have a building, like right now, we are lower than everything else behind us. So you can see the full line, and it doesn't bother me, the view, but the people who the view bothers them, that's just going to be basically the same thing. You're just not going to see as far.
Well, okay, I'm not thinking so much as the total over appearance of height. Again, I was kind of shocked how tall those landmark Palmer Place apartments are going up. I think that's different.
But
than
that is
what-
45 feet.
Yes, and that's much different than most people thought. But what you're talking about is putting 45 feet right at the edge of the street. And there's a difference between, okay, you know, the building being way back there, a block away from Stimson, versus a 45-foot building right on Stimson.
Right.
And again, I look at, I'd have to get my compass out, but I'm assuming we're looking at, it's north, what is it? It's north, it's east-west, but it's all like
Here's north.
southwest. Yeah, so most of the shading is going to be on Stimson. This sidewalk's not going to see much sun.
Right.
And, you know, not that I see a lot of planters there either, but at the same time, just for ambiance and a sense of openness.
You're right.
You know,
But-
you're replacing something that's right now 1 story with something that's going to be 4 in terms of height. And I looked at it as a big problem in terms of size. And although it's 45 feet, I should say 40 feet, it fits within the code. It will have an impact. I'm not sure if possible.
Has to be cost effective for me though to replace what is there, and that's why we have a problem,
I'm aware of it. And again, the cost is, as a planning commission, unlike zoning board of appeals, cost is a consideration. But again, it's also a balance of all the other parts of the code. And I know
Right.
there's parts of it that need to be changed. I'll freely admit, I think that
But
Palmer
the-
Street, residential on Palmer Street, I don't think is a problem. I think I'd be a little bit more questioning that on Stimson, I look at the drinking and eating establishments, I think that was a straight-out error in writing.
Right.
A typo from my point of view. But the impact is there, and that has to be changed.
It's not a typo, it's very specific.
Oh, I know.
Right,
Yeah.
it was a mistake when some of the...
Mr. Baum done it when he was redoing the
Well,
the
it
plan, so that
happened,
was
but, yeah.
intentionally.
It happens.
I don't think it was intentional, because
Right.
I was
Okay.
involved in redoing that too, and it got very confusing when we got to working with 3 or 4 different versions. And I think that was an accident, but
Okay.
it's there and we have to take it out again.
And cost me a lot of money right now. One thing I want to say though, I mean, if really the city has a vision and wants the vision to happen, I'm not asking for any tax help or anything like that. I'm only asking, let me do the vision and make the vision cost effective. Otherwise, who's going to do something? I mean, when I'm ready to die and I want to donate $20 million, maybe I'll do it the way the city wants it. That makes sense. But right now, my mortgage is still going on.
Right. But what our aim is to balance your vision with what, the citizens of Athens have expressed as their vision.
Right.
And making sure that the benefits and impacts, meet everybody's needs.
Right.
I think that's the challenge of any project. Even if every single, code was perfect and everything, it would still be a question of
Right.
that. I mean, the architecture person does that with his rendering. I mean, he's taken some of those issues into.
Right.
So I think, I don't think that it's,
But a local person is the one can do it more efficient than, like, let's say, the Edwards company, okay? That they want to do the project in the back. And you saw what kind of density they want to put there,
yes.
okay?
And
You
realize,
saw what
You know what I
happened
mean?
with the neighborhood
Right.
was,
we have now added a whole nother layer of code to address these problems. And
Right.
So when you talk about restrictions of code and laws, because obviously sometimes things fall through, and what's going up is not what most people would like to see.
Right.
So now we throw another piece of code on to fix a problem after the fact. I'm aware that there are ongoing conversations of improving Stimson as a whole. I believe there was a meeting coming up soon. You may want to talk to chamber people about that. I did not make it to the last meeting or whatever it was.
They're meeting right now. Excuse me, they're meeting right now, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, same time.
That's why I didn't make it, I guess.
Yep.
But that's it. The idea is if we want to look at this as a unit, we also want to look at Stimson as its entirety up and down. And I don't know what parameters there are for that.
Right.
You look and say, we do have a changing entranceway there. We have, single-family housing that is still there. We have single-family housing that's actually being tried to be sold as commercial right now. So there are changes going on. Whether do it, I'm not ready to jump on this and say this is a great thing, though. Again, there's elements here that really are bothersome. The size, the height. I look at the parking is another condition entirely. Again, I'm intrigued with trying to not require one car, one bedroom, but I'm not sure how to go jumping on it right now. The zip cars, I did look at the site. There's the other site, flex cars. I see usually they're cut off for actually requiring, and again, I may be wrong on this, requiring for actually the ability to use that car is age 25. So unless there's a student component to the zip car, where somebody between 20 and 25 can actually use it, that may not fit the needs of these people.
Okay, zip car would not be from 18 years old because for us it's actually the zip car company itself, because zip car is an actually company, their requirement is 18.
Okay.
And that's why they're in so many universities,
Okay. One side I went to had cut off at 25.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was flex car or zip car.
All right,
Check
well,
for a
it
second.
depends, of course, what city you are and, what kind of crime is, I don't know, what kind of driving records usually.
Yeah. Well, I think they
Insurances.
required a good license, good driving license. and then-
On a rental car, just the way we are right now, you have to be 21, and you have to have a driving license
Yeah.
and insurance.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of times that the roofs were not going to be green roofs.
Right.
Could you get, or maybe you already have gotten from your architect, an estimate of how much it would cost to have green roofs instead? Because it seems to me that in that area where we've got pretty much everything paved over, that would be a real selling point.
I can do that and maybe at least get a big portion of the roof to be a green roof,
Yeah.
like the one that makes it visually right.
I think it would be a good, because it's on Stimson, so everybody sees it and so on. It would be a good example and a good way to start
Right.
people thinking about
That'd be a good idea, right?
Lead design.
So
Start on the lead
that would be one thing that I would request that you think about and let us know about.
Sure, I can provide you, if I have some drawings, do we need to have a formal meeting or leave it someplace or how?
You could just, I guess, leave it in the mayor's office and we can
Okay,
get copies, yeah.
I can have something soon.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
Within
be a
2 weeks.
full
Rendering.
formal rendering or anything, but particularly what the architect can tell you about cost and you may have cost benefits on heating and air conditioning too if you have a green roof.
The architect already has the information because we were looking at, but I did not want to throw it in as a condition. You know what I mean? So it'd be very easy for me to get them. The problem is, Mr. Knoll is on vacation this week. Next week is, of course, spring break. And we don't
Well, we
really
won't
hear.
meet again until April 3rd.
Okay,
So
we
if-
have it before
If we
then.
could have it before then,
Yes.
that would be great.
Yes.
So then you need, at this point, you need to work with Steve to get ready for the preliminary proposal, right?
So
Is that what we do now?
Right, that's the next step.
Because
If the
this was-
developer chooses to, to go ahead and ask for preliminary approval, yes, there's some lists, some middle information that's necessary. And I calculate the fee necessary for the application. And that's where we go. The list gets a little more extensive and specific as we go along. The detail has to be greater. To be very honest with you, there's not a whole lot of information necessary for a preliminary application, so it can be put together fairly quickly by an applicant. Doesn't take long at all.
And the answers that we got in the letter from Mr. Knoll are sufficient answers for the questions that were in your letter.
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, because he gave me the number of units, now I'll know, one thing, what the fees are, but more importantly, I think, I was able just to quickly, if my math's correct, calculate the density, at just not counting in anything for the retail. And using 30 units times the minimum requirement of 1,250 square feet, that comes to 37,500 square feet divided by the square footage of an acre, and that would take 0.88 acres. So I believe the project size is just a little under that. So as I'd mentioned, I think I mentioned to some of you before, I'll do the exact numbers. That could be another variance that'd be necessary.
Okay.
Well, I think that from what I'm hearing among people is that there is this concern about it, the density of having the high number of units, not necessarily the units, but the high number of bedrooms, I guess, right? I mean, it's
Bodies.
per bodies in parking.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that needs to be looked at by Mr. Prokos, seriously, because we need to be able to start really seriously looking at this, and we don't want to have to go through this whole thing over and over and over with each, looking at the different densities. So, when I'm, maybe seriously look at the number of units that you have and what your break-even point or, scenarios that you could come up with.
That has already been looked very, very hard.
Right.
Because is the number of bedrooms is multiplied by the dollars you can rent. I think the way we had it when we were down to like 60 bedrooms, we had to rent each bedroom for $1,500 a month to break even. So it will be very hard to come with good numbers. A number that can break even
Right.
unless you put the bathrooms there. Because remember, it is a place that is already, we have to knock something down that is existent and that has some kind of value. And then you have to add that cost to the total picture.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any communications? I don't have any.
Is that where the bylaws fall under, or no?
Well,
Or is that
That-
other business?
that's other business, I
Okay.
guess.
Just asking.
Announcements.
Yeah, okay, announcements and other business. The next meeting will be April 3rd at noon. We have the definition of restaurants that Chris gave us.
We talked a bit about that last meeting. I don't know whether
Okay,
you want to
what-
go with those. What do you want to do with
To tell you the truth, I have not looked at
those?
Well,
You've been busy.
Yes.
why don't we,
Sorry.
why don't we save that and the draft of the bylaws for the April 3rd meeting?
Okay.
And that will give Melissa a chance to send the bylaws to Harry and give Paula a chance to see them.
And then,
And we can look at the restaurants.
and I might be able to do more of my homework. I haven't been able to
Well.
find the
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
Okay.
Look
We
at
have
it.
one in Simpson, that's the Roadhouse in Simpson.
Yep.
We don't know what it is, but we'll put one there.
Okay, any other business?
No. Do you have any, Steve?
No.
Opportunity for citizens to speak? Nobody? Okay, disposition of the minutes. We had two sets of minutes, one from February 21st and
Oh,
one
we
from March
had
6th.
accepted those.
Oh, you had, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then
So it's
the
just the-
minutes of March 6th.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of typos that I marked on mine, but that, since I wasn't here, I don't have anything more to say about
They
it.
seem pretty straightforward.
They did. I think you were asking earlier in my office, or Melissa's office, about the two motions. that
Yeah,
passed.
but that was on the 21st.
Yes.
Yeah, and we got it sorted out.
Okay.
So, okay. I motion that we accept the minutes.
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All those
You
opposed?
You abstaining?
I'm not abstaining, I can't abstain, they're all you.
Okay.
We'll have a quorum.
Okay.
Okay, so that's got my notes on it.
So the corrections,
And
yeah.
anybody else have any other corrections or anything?
No.
Okay. Like to move for adjournment?
I'll second that. I'll move.
I'll
Okay,
second.
okay. And it doesn't take a
I'll vote.
second or a vote or anything, so we're adjourned.
We are done then.